Hello and welcome to the Hopeless Podcast. My name is Delphia and I am your host. And joining us today, we have a special guest. None of the regulars are with us, which is sad, but we do have our guest, as I just said. So welcome, Rachel Lowe.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome having you on. And I met Rachel in 2019 at a youth camp, and then we just gotten to know each other a bit more after that at different camps and just hanging out together. So Rachel, who are you? For those who are listening, I ask this to every single person. So tell us a bit about yourself.
Right. Well, I'm just a regular young person, I guess. I'm 20. I have a part-time bookkeeping job. We live on a property, so I love gardening. Love gardening, so I do that in my spare time. And I come from always busy, always doing something. So that's a bit about me.
Nice. So what are some things, like you said you love gardening, which is awesome. What about, like, I know that you've got a ministry, which I am also partly involved in, that what do you do with that? And what are some of your passions along with the ministry?
Yeah, so when COVID came in and we were in a lockdown, and I'd just come back from a Bible college, and I was so enthused with all these new things I'd been learning, and I couldn't use them. So I decided, well, we can do online. We can't go out and about. We can do online. So I started a ministry with my siblings and then a few other in Delphia here. And so it's called Undivided Heart Ministry. And the verse is found in Psalms 86, verse 11. And it says, "Unite my heart to fear thy name, and I will walk in thy truth." And basically the idea is that God wants an undivided heart. He wants all of us. He doesn't want us to be half in, half out. He wants us to give him everything that we have. And so it's this idea of being able to share tips, ideas, resources, videos, and to inspire other young people in particular to be able to surrender their lives to Jesus, and then to be able to serve him wholeheartedly.
Which is awesome. And, I've been so blessed being a part of it, writing blogs and stuff like that, and just helping out where I can. That's been amazing. And so one of your things that you're really into is helping young people, I guess.
Yeah. So it was kind of born from, I guess, when I gave my life to God, to Jesus. I guess so many people talk about it and they say you just can't help it but share. And I didn't understand that until I experienced it for myself. I was about 16 years of age. And all of a sudden I was like, this is powerful. I have joy. I have purpose. I have meaning in my life, something I've been searching for. I had a very, I grew up, in a religious house, but I never had that meaningful, purposeful, one-on-one relationship with Jesus, that led me to have purpose in my life. So when I found that, I just wanted to share that with everyone. And then I started thinking about how I felt as a young person. I felt like I missed out on having someone else in my life who could point me in that direction. And so all of a sudden I'm this mindset of like, what about all those other young people that they haven't experienced this? Their life is very shallow, meaningless. There's something more fulfilling out there. And so I wanted to be a missionary. I really wanted to be a missionary overseas, but God did not open that door at all whatsoever, no matter how hard I pushed it, right? I banged on that door and God was like, no, that's not for you. And so he led me to be a part of a team called Eastwood Missions, who specializes in working with young people and inspiring them and equipping them for ministry. And after that, being with them, I was like, nah, WA needs this. because there was not much happening in WA. I was like, I'm going back. Now I've got the skills and the training. WA needs this. So that's kind of been my life motto and mission is to inspire and equip other young people in WA to be able to share their faith in bold and relevant evangelism.
And for those of you who aren't in Australia, you may not realize, but Western Australia is very isolated from the rest of Australia. We're a few thousand kilometers, or probably close to 1,000 miles from the next capital city. So
we're about 2 years behind in all of the fancy developments over there.
Yes, very true, very true. So like that's what, when Rachel says that there isn't much going on here, we mean there's not very much going on here, especially with the young people. Like there may be some stuff like just in general with church, but like specifically on young people, literally everything is in the eastern states, and it really sucks because it's cheaper.
Too expensive.
I know.
Like
literally it's cheaper for someone over in the eastern states to go to New Zealand than it is for them to come over here to Western Australia, which is really annoying because I've got friends in New Zealand that I'd love to see, but it's, you know, too much to like go over there. So we're very isolated, and, you know, we really need people like Rachel who are, you know, willing to go and help the youth here. And I think it's not like, as you said, with having a one-on-one relationship with Christ, I think that's what a lot of people are missing, especially young people, where it's just like there's, you know, they've got their life ahead of them, and it's just like, I don't want to be tied down by religion, but religion is liberating. And I think that's probably something that young people don't see, is that side of religion. And I think that's one of the reasons why they leave church a lot of the time. I don't know, what do you think, Rachel?
Yeah, so I sat down one day and I think about these things. And so I was thinking, how do you keep a young person in the church? Why did they leave? And I asked a few different people, and I came to the conclusion, because they have no purpose. Young people are very active. They're full of energy and enthusiasm, right? And can I share a quote with you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It's a quote that I found specifically about young people. And it says, "Youthful talent, well organized and well trained, is needed in our churches." Now think about that. Youthful talent is needed, but it has to be well organized and well trained. So we had this all this abundance of energy and enthusiasm and ideas and creativity, but we don't have it well organized and well trained. Now, some people say, let the youth at it and just let them do their thing. And then because they're undirected, you know, there's no one training them and mentoring them, it kind of fizzles out, or they get sidetracked, and they don't have the solid foundation. So, you know, or they say, oh, no, we can't have that because they are inexperienced, they'll make mistakes. But no, this quote clearly says that youthful talent is needed, but it's to be molded and shaped and cultivated. So that's my idea, is that in order to keep someone active in the church, you put them to work.
Definitely. I think, you know, as it's said, the idle mind is the devil's workshop. And I think that's a problem with a lot of different youth, with, you know, they don't have anything to do. As you said, they aren't given responsibility, so they don't go and ask for it either. And then they're just like, I'm kind of useless here. I could be out, you know, somewhere else doing things that are more enjoyable to me. And it, I guess, becomes a drudgery to be at church when they could be doing something else which is fulfilling them, or they think is fulfilling them more than what religion is or would.
Exactly. I think what's really important for young people is a sense of belonging. And the best way to feel like you belong is to have responsibilities and to be part of a team, and not an idle team, an active team that's making progress and is, you can see success, results, you can see the fruit of what you're doing. And another one is to also feel that what you're doing is not only you're a part of it, but it's other people's lives are being changed because of it. It's, I don't know if you've ever said something really nice, or someone drops their keys in the line in front of you, or drops a $5 note, and you pick it up and you say, here you go, this is yours, you dropped it. You do something nice for them, you just go out of your way to do that. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. And they have a big smile. And then it's like, oh, you feel warm inside. You feel, you know, oh, you did something nice. And as much as it helped them, it actually helps you too.
And it definitely like develops you. And, you know, I guess it makes you want to do more of those things. Like, I had something like that happen to me. Like, I was sitting next to a young girl and her mum, just waiting for my mum. And this little girl had a bag of cookies that she was having. And one guy was sitting there, he kind of teased her and went and like did a hand motion as if he wanted some. Anyway, and her mom's like, you know, go give it to him. Like, you know, this is the week before Christmas. And she's like, you know, give it to him. You know, it's Christmas, give it to him. Anyway, and I think she mentioned something like, my teacher said not to, and she's like, your mum is telling you to do it, go do it and give it to them. And then she offered me one, then another one. It's like, oh, you're so sweet. Like, even though, it took her mum a bit of encouragement, which is what youth need in the church, is they need it from the mothers and fathers in the church to say, go ahead, do it. Like, you know, you're being encouraged to do it. And, you know, that little girl now has learned something. It's good to be nice to people, especially when your parents, you know, a lot of time is like stranger danger. But when your parents are there, you know, and they encourage you to do it, it's just like, I've done something good. Like, one, I obeyed my parents. Two, I went and made someone's day. So I think that's really good. But our topic tonight, some people may be listening is morning or day, or, you know, whatever for them. But what are 5 down-to-earth tips that you have for sharing our faith? So, you know, we've spoken about how the young people, it really helps them to stay grounded in the church and it gives them purpose and stuff. But like, how do we practically apply this? You know, it's not just for young people, okay, guys, like this is for all ages. But we're saying young people specifically because we're young people and, you know, we want to go and help people. We want other young people to learn to help and to share their faith as well. So what are like 5 things, you know? Number 1, what would your number 1 thing be?
Number 1 is to change your mindset. Sounds really abstract, but let me explain it to you. We wake up and we think the day is ours. And we go about the day's duties with our plan and our list of things to do. And we do it. And then, you know, if opportunities come up, we might say, oh, yeah, actually. And then we check it with our calendar. But other than that, that's about as far as variety goes, right? But we have to start seeing every day as a fresh opportunity to be an opportunist, and to be open to wherever God would lead us, right? So it starts with this mindset of, there is someone today that I need to speak to. There is someone today that God wants me to talk to. There are things that I want to do in life, right? I might just be, it's a boring day, right? Today, all I did was get up and do gardening and working at home and you know, how am I supposed to reach someone? Right? It could be a family member. Don't underestimate the power of family members. But I've learned in the morning that in order to have this sort of mindset is you pray for opportunities to share the gospel with someone today. Say, Lord, today is yours. It's not mine. So I have lots of plans and you know what they are. You know how much I have to get done today. But I ask that you would please lead me. If you want me to do something else, to be somewhere else, that you please help me to be open to that change, and that you would please work on the heart of someone so that I can be right there at the right time to speak to them or share something with them that day. So essentially it's your day is no longer yours. You're living for a greater purpose.
Yeah, and I think that's something as well that's like really important. As you're saying, purpose is a big thing like in a young person's life that we need. Okay, like me as a young person, and when Rachel asked me to be a part of a ministry, I felt that purpose, and I felt that I belong. As she said, those very things that she said, it clicked to me. It's like, yes, that's what I felt. When I was asked to be a part of the ministry, to help with blogs, to help with photo design and stuff like that. It's like, yes, I thoroughly enjoyed that. It's like I had purpose in what I was doing. It wasn't like, I don't know how you'd explain it. It's like someone trusted me with those different tasks. And for me, that was just like, oh, I'm so appreciated. And it was like so good for me to be a part of that. And another thing I believe with the mindset where you're saying, like, yes, everything has to be given to God as his. But I remember being with someone one time. I have no idea about this person's background, if they're spiritual or not. And I just had this impression just to strike up a religious conversation. And I was just like, oh, but I'm shy, okay? I appear very confident and very not shy, but, deep down, I'm actually shy, and I hate, having to strike up conversations. And, I was there, I was just like, God, like, you want me to strike up a spiritual conversation? And then I ended up not doing it. And straight after that, like, when I went back home, I was just like, what if that means that that person is not in heaven because I couldn't get over my shyness against God's will for me to share with that person. And it was just like, God, forgive me if that has meant that a soul is lost forever because of my neglect and my almost selfishness. You could literally call it selfishness, because it was putting me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I've had definitely similar things happen to me. I'm going to be telling you the story of for each point that I tell you, I want to tell you the story of my workplace, because I had this idea I was going to be a missionary in another country. Yeah. That was not God's plan for my life, and it hasn't been. And I tried hard. Like, I'm not saying that I didn't try hard enough. I tried really hard. God led me to be a bookkeeper at this place, and I was thinking, well, I guess I'll just have to share my faith here. And I started to pray for opportunities to share with people. But when the opportunity came, I was not ready, right? I was so shy and so nervous. And you'd think, because I've had training in the past on how to share my faith, you'd think I would be confident enough to do it. But I could not get over the shyness. And so it took me a good few months of trying and then hesitating and being too shy to actually speak up. And when someone would go out of their way to ask me a spiritual question, I was still so shy. But I think one of them is to realize that when someone's genuinely interested and asks you, that's an opportunity for you to speak on behalf of Jesus. And it's not really about you. If they reject that, if they don't like that, you say, okay, well, they obviously are interested in Jesus. It's not anything really personal. So we need to learn to not take it personally, I think.
And I guess, I've been out where, going door to door and selling spiritual books. And some people, swear at you. They go and slam the door in your face. Yeah. Rachel knows those ones. And, it's just like, oh, like, they did that to me. It can really get you down. But it's just like, it's all about mindset. Are you, as Rachel said, are you taking it as a personal assault, or is it they've just rejected life? And I think you more feel sorry for them when you realize that that's what's happening. It's not that they are rejecting you, is they're rejecting eternal life. And I think that's a really crucial point. So moving along, number 2. What's number 2, Rachel?
Well, you kind of already touched on this when you were sharing your story about that starting that spiritual conversation.
Mm.
So yeah, when it comes to, once you've prayed, right, you've gotten up in the morning and you've prayed, all right, and you start your day, look for opportunities to start a spiritual conversation. So this is very abstract as well, because how do you do that, right? Well, there's something called thought and family, occupation, what is it? Recreation, and I can't remember what the last one is, but that's an acronym, right? On what you start with. So start talking about their family, start talking about their occupation, their what they do in their spare time, what they like to do, and that's T is testimony. And then if they're a Christian, or you find out that they're religious, ask them to share their testimony with you. People like to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
And this opens it up. But what you got to look for is you got to look for little hints. If if they mention that they're Catholic, I say, oh, that's wonderful. It's lovely to meet other believers. And then you ask them about their background, and I'm like, oh, did you join the church, or were you like baptized as an infant, and that sort of thing. And you just genuine curiosity in people's lives. You never know where that's going to lead.
Yeah.
The same is true for topics. So I don't know if you've realized, but since this global pandemic, it's awakened in a lot of people either concern, fear, or just they'll just shut you down. When it comes to people don't want to hear about it because they're so sick and tired of it. And I totally understand that. It can get really annoying talking about COVID all the time.
Yeah.
But it's such an opening wedge for spiritual conversations. Because if you've been following what's happening in this world, you can talk about God's principles of freedom of choice instead of force. You can talk about these things, and a lot of people are asking, what's going to happen next? This is the question on people's minds. So keep that in mind when you're talking about COVID with someone next, as you can share with them the hope that we have. So at work, everyone is very, very concerned. And so they should be. I mean, things are concerning these days. And they often ask me, are you scared? Does it give you anxiety? And I say, look, it is concerning at times. I do feel concerned about, things that are happening in this world. And I think we should be concerned, but I'm not anxious. I'm not worried. And they ask me, why is that? Why aren't you anxious? That right there is the opportunity to tell them of the source of our trust and the source of our peace. And I'm able to just say a few words, and they're not religious, but I say, well, I believe that when we place our lives in God's hand, he always takes care of us, and he'll look after me. He'll provide a way for me to be able to, continue working and that sort of thing. So
yeah, I think that's like really good. Like, during this whole pandemic, there's been like so many things going on, but we've got a peace that passes understanding. We know the source of that peace, and that's Jesus Christ. And, okay, I'm just going to let you guys know, hairdressers are a great place to strike out conversations because you're literally doing nothing. That's where I felt like I should talk to someone, while my hair was being done, is just like, I should go and talk to this lady about stuff. I was able afterward, like another time, going in there to go and say that, we go to church and stuff like that. So like just dropping that, okay, people may say, oh, whatever, okay, but when, for us being Seventh-day Adventist, everybody's like, you go to church on Sabbath, like the Sabbath, like the Jewish Sabbath, the seventh day of the week, that's a point of conversation. Like, why do you guys go to church on Sabbath? Why are you guys vegetarian? There was a Catholic lady that I spoke to, once again at the hairdressers, she was doing my hair, and, I found out that she was Catholic, and, that's how she'd met her boyfriend. She was going up, I think, to a higher level, like basically studying more about Catholicism and stuff like that. And, I was able to talk to her about health and different things like that, and how, basically God wanted us to have health and stuff like that. It was a great conversation with her. And, even though, we're different faiths, you could say. But, you know, at the end of the day, she believes that there's a God. I believe that there's a God. And we've got the Bible. Okay. Like, we can go and discuss things very openly. Like, don't make it into a controversy either, I guess. It's like a lot of the time, like, we can be really fixed on like doctrinal points and be like, oh, like, you guys are doing so wrong. Like, you guys are basically going to hell because you don't believe the same way I do. But that a lot of the time just goes and builds barriers instead of building bridges. So I think that's something really important as well, is have a spiritual conversation, but not an spiritual argument. Keep it more of a friendly interaction, so people remember you and say, I had a positive interaction when I met Rachel and she was really nice. I've spoken to people of other faiths and they aren't so nice. What's different about Rachel and her faith? So I think that's something that's also really important.
Absolutely. You got to leave people with a positive impression. And the reason isn't just because we want to be nice people. It's because you can't separate the spirit of Christ from the truth of Christ. You can never ever separate those two, because as soon as you do, you have harsh, really, it feels condemning. It's God's truth is amazing, but to people who don't understand the love of God, it's quite condemning, because there's mixed up beliefs out there about eternal hellfire and judgments of God, that he's looking down on you and he just wants to nitpick at you. And so people grow up with that. And so when they don't have that positive experience with you, that's what they're thinking. It just reinforces that belief. So we can never separate the two. I agree.
Yeah. And, you know, so let's say that we've changed our mindset. We've gone and learned how to go and steer conversation into a more spiritual path, or we've been able to strike up spiritual conversations. What's another very vital and down-to-earth point that we can have in sharing our faith?
Oh, another one on the spiritual convos, just before I go into this one, very practical tip is, if someone asks you, so if you mention something about religion and someone asks you, oh, are you a Christian? Or are you religious? Because I get this question a lot when I'm canvassing. You say this: personally, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. Have you heard of us? And then you throw back the question on them. So you do it this kind of a to and fro. You say what you are, and then you have you heard of us? And you're, oh, actually, I grew up a Seventh-day Adventist, but I haven't been to church in a while. And then you're like, instantly, right there is a talking point.
Yeah, so many times it's happened.
Yeah. Or their uncle goes to the Seventh-day Adventist church, or they're married to a Seventh-day Adventist, or
they had friends in the past who are Seventh-day Adventists and taught them different things. I've had that one before as well.
Exactly. And so just asking them, oh, have you ever heard of us before? Very simple one, keep in mind. Right.
Awesome.
Number 3, let's get on to that one before I talk too much. Number 3 is to carry resources. So there's this verse that says to speak a word in season and out of season, right? And what that basically means is that we want to be ready no matter what happens. And I have a quick quote here. I think it should be here. Oh, it's not right. It's not here at the moment, but essentially what it said is that Jesus, there was no such thing as, all right, we start ministry at 9 a.m. in the morning, we'll have a break for an hour, and then I'll be back, preaching at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, for him, it was a way of life. So once you've changed your mindset, and you're starting spiritual conversations, you need to be ready to follow up. And the best way, if you haven't got a lot of time and you know you're not going to meet the other person again, probably not for a while at least, is to carry spiritual resources. So things like books, DVDs, or you can point them to websites, YouTube channels.
Podcasts.
Yeah, podcasts like this one. Really awesome, guys. I'd recommend if you want to share this with anyone. Get familiar with your church's library. they usually have sharing resources. They'll have some like that new Hope book that you can share with people. And yeah, so for me, I carry around Little Steps to Christ in the side of my door. I carry glow tracks in my handbag, and I carry them in my car, in my glove box as well. And then I've always got a canvassing bag in the back full of books. And as well as that, I like to see new videos that come out from people like Doug Batchelor, really great resources on topics. And so I'll share a quick story on that real quick. So following this story with my boss, so I finally mustered up the courage to answer his questions. Now, he asked me one day, said, "What do you think the mark of the beast is?" And I was like, wow, this is a question, isn't it? I'm just trying to have lunch, and he's a Catholic. So I'm thinking, oh dear, where's this gonna go? And so I didn't answer, but I basically said, I believe that the Bible has the answer to that question. And I said, if you read Daniel and Revelation together, you'll find the answer. And he said, oh, I think it's blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he comes in one day and he talks to my parents very briefly, and he says, I want to get baptized. Is there anyone who will baptize me? And so because of that, I was able, it was like an open door to share resources with him, because I could see that he genuinely, there was nothing stopping him. He wanted to get baptized. He wanted to give his life to God, and he wanted to know what the mark of the beast was so that he could be prepared. And he's a studier and researcher. So I had the opportunity to share with him a great controversy and a Little Steps to Christ, as well as numerous videos I'd flick to him, and he'll flick a video back to me on my work email, and I'll watch it, and he's like, did you watch that video? What did you think of it? And so we had these discussions, and his videos aren't always in line with all the biblical truths, but it's an opportunity for him to feel like he can share resources with me, and I can share resources with him.
Yeah.
So yeah, be prepared, carry some resources on you. Yeah,
that's awesome. And I think, maybe some of you guys haven't heard about these books that we're mentioning. We've said about Steps to Christ, Great Controversy, things like that. And Seventh-day Adventist churches, I'm sure that most of them will be able to go and give you a copy of either one of those books, or you can find them online. So if you want to go and find out more about these different things, Doug Batchelor is also available. I'll see if I can get the guys to go and put the links in the description of this podcast so that you can go and check him out. He's a great one, as Rachel mentioned about him. Go and, if you don't know, go and have a look at those resources, discover more about God through different lines, and so for you guys, for us here, we're able to share resources with you guys, through what we say. So check out Steps to Christ is one that is much loved. Great Controversy. If you're into history, mystery, crime, and intrigue, that's the book for you.
Absolutely.
And you don't know what's happening in this world, everything, as Rachel said, everything's so upside down at the moment with all this pandemic, mandates.
People are searching for answers. They're searching for stability, something they can trust, some hope, because it's looking very hopeless at the moment. It looks like things are just going to get worse. And so as much as the Great Controversy goes into a lot of history, it also has a lot of prophecy, which leads you to have the hope in Jesus Christ.
Which is awesome. I forgot if I shared this on the podcast or if it was someone who I was going to be interviewing, just privately. That's why our title has a question mark in it, because is this world truly hopeless? Rachel, is it truly hopeless?
No, it's not. Absolutely. As in, I'd say the world in itself, apart from Christ, is hopeless. There is nothing in this world that is good or meaningful. Even the things that are good are so shallow without Jesus. But with Jesus, we have hope.
Yeah. And this is one thing, in Christ is our hope, and honestly, Steps to Christ, it's how to find Christ, honestly, guys. So check out those books. Either local Seventh-day Adventist church. There's like a fair few of them around, and online. I'll see if I can go and get links in the description for both those books and for different sites so that you can go and have a look at resources and have resources on you to share with your friends. And number 4, Rachel, meet them in their homes.
Meeting them in their homes. So there's this concept that I think a lot of churches have this concept that we need to run these really big programs, and there's nothing wrong with that. And then we invite them, all these people to come, and we need to pack the churches, and we need to fill the churches, build these big churches and fill them. We need to build this big program, and then we need to fill all the seats. And if the seats are empty, we're like, well, we messed up, we failed. And we're missing something. Christ's method alone. And I used to think, well, people are just saying, oh, it's evangelistic meetings don't work anymore because, they just don't like evangelistic meetings. But I think they don't work for one or two reasons. I think they don't work because, number one, we're not going to the people. And number two, I think there's been a lot of a disinterest in, as a church as a whole, equipping young people to take up that work of learning how to evangelize and be inspired. Because when you only have like one person, they're doing the whole thing, and the church just relies on this, right? Christ's method is he went from house to house, village to village, town to town, and he would speak a word in season. And we get this picture of him, and what he does is he starts discussing with 2 or 3 people, right? And then passers-by, as they're walking past, they pick up, oh, what are they talking about? That's really interesting. I've never heard anything like that in my life.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd really like to know the answer to those questions. Because the rabbis at the time weren't answering those questions, And they stop and they listen. And then more people come and more people come. And all of a sudden, Jesus has this multitude of people, right? And it started with 2 or 3 people, right? Maybe even just one. And people are open. If you go to their house where they are, their environment, they invite you in. And that leads me into this next one. How do you get to people's homes?
Good question. I think, there's a lot of different ways. Like, I think one way, which is mentioned a bit, is help with their physical needs before helping with their spiritual needs. Because a lot of people will go and allow you to help them out with, say they need help in the backyard or in their home to go and fix something up. There is a wedge so that you can go and see them. And we've already discussed starting a spiritual conversation.
Absolutely. So are you ready for number 5?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so number 5 answers this question. How on earth do we get to their homes? So instead of just advertising for a program and then expecting people to come up so you can evangelize them and share your faith, you want to go to people's homes. But knocking on the door and saying, okay, hi, I'm here to tell you about Jesus. Do you want a Bible study? Doesn't always work. Although I have had it happen before where people have been open to a Bible study, which is amazing. It's a miracle. So what do? Well, essentially, you want to use an entering wedge, right? So if you want to chop down a tree, right, and you chop it a little bit, you stick a wedge in there, and then you start banging on the back of the wedge, and it widens the gap. And the further it goes in, the wider it gets. And so this is this concept of you use something that's not necessarily religious or spiritual to be able to enter into their feelings, enter into their life. What are their greatest needs? You identify that, and then you minister to that. And it's not always health, although health is one of the predominant things. So here are some really practical tips. Number 1, go to your next door neighbors, go to all your neighbors and ask them, hey, we're new here, or even if you're not new here, just stop by, seeing how you're going. We live just down there. Wanted to let you know if there's anything you need, there's anything at all, we'd be more than happy to help you. Here's some cookies. Right?
Yeah.
And you've done your job, and then you can have a conversation and check up with them regularly. Another one is you can use surveys, basically where you go around, and if you want to do a community, and you can basically you ask them questions like, what are some of your needs? Like, do you need gardening or cooking, or do you need help with something, or would you like a stop smoking program, or would you like some resources, or would you like a Bible study? So, or just a visit each week. Some people just want someone to talk to, especially the older generation.
Yeah.
Right. And you find a need, and then you start ministering to that. So something that people underestimate as well is singing. Now, tonight, the reason why this podcast is so late in our time is because I was out caroling tonight. So what we went around and did is we would knock on the door, and we'd stand back, and when they come out, we'd start singing a couple of hymns. And then after that, we'd say Merry Christmas, and we'd give them a book called Desire of Ages, which goes through the life of Christ. And it was an opportunity for us to share resources with people without just going up to them and handing them the book. And they were all so happy, and they're like, yay, this is so awesome, and sharing with them a spiritual song. So an idea is you knock on their door and you say, hi. And if it's not Christmas and you're not caroling, you say, hi, I'm with a bunch of my friends or my family, and we love to sing. Would you like it if we sang a few songs for you? Now, this seems really weird, okay? But trust me, people will be open to it. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, go for it. What sort of songs would you like to sing? Oh, we'll just sing a couple of hymns and start with something simple like Amazing Grace, or something like that. And most of them will invite you into their homes. Now, this is what you want. You want people to invite them into your homes, as long as you're with some other people, especially if you're young. Okay, don't go into strange people's homes.
Unless your parents tell you. Remember, I said that at the beginning.
That's right. I'm at the age where I kind of can, and it's not too much of a concern. But if you're younger and you're just on your own, try to take another person with you. And if you're female, try to take a male. We don't want any kidnappings or anything like that. But remember, God will take care of you. Another one is you can offer to cook for someone, bringing them food, and they'll invite you in, and they'll say, here, I have something for you. And when we're canvassing, right, we share books with people on the doors, and we say, knock, knock, and hi, my name is, and then we share with them some spiritual books. A lot of them say, oh, why don't you come in and have a drink, and I'll get you something, a bite to eat. And a lot of the time we want to move on really quickly. But if you want to develop relationships, if you want to share your faith and to be able to lead someone to a personal relationship with Jesus, you want this, right? This is good for them to invite you into their homes. You can start talking with them, building a relationship with them, and then come back regularly and visit them.
Yeah, and honestly, with the singing, nursing homes are a great place to do this. If you aren't, overly confident about knocking on people's doors, ask a nursing home if you can go in there and just sing some hymns for the old folk. And they love it. Like, I've been a couple times, and, a lot of the time the old folk do get very lonely. A lot of them don't receive visitors, and it's lovely to just go in there and sing. You get to talk to them afterward, and, they tell you the great job that you did singing and stuff like that. And it's really sweet just to be able to, help them. A lot of them, they probably heard these songs when they were real young, and it's just like, oh, I remember, that song. And then sometimes they'll request different songs, and as you said, it builds a relationship with them. So, we don't just want to, kind of just get straight to the point. We want to go and like build a relationship with people. So,
Exactly.
There's some rapport between us. It's not just, don't just shove the gospel down people's throats, basically.
Exactly. Absolutely. And so an example from my work is recently, I found out that after my boss said that he wanted to get baptized and everything like that, I had this idea in my head of how can I share some resources with these folk, and I been praying about it, and I was waiting for Christmas. I was like, Christmas is my chance. Everyone loves gifts and presents. And I actually got this idea from another friend. What she'd done is she'd gone around at work and she had a few different books, Ministry of Healing, Steps to Christ, Great Controversy, and a cookbook, because people love healthy food. Well, people don't always love healthy food, but they need healthy food. And she let them choose which one they wanted. And I was like, oh, I can do this at my workplace. And praise the Lord, on Thursday, 6 people got the Great Controversy. They picked it. And I showed them all of them, and they're like, oh, I want that one. I need to know what's happening, and I want to stand up for my freedom. Praise the Lord. And yeah, you can give them the option of that for Christmas or a gift. But I want you to tell you something about this meeting in people's homes and developing relationships is you can't let it end there. The ultimate purpose is to lead someone to have a saving relationship with Jesus Christ. And if you stop at just sharing healthy tips with them or just cleaning their garden, you're missing the purpose, right? So the entering wedge has to eventually lead to the actual main purpose, which is, to actually cut down the tree. So you want an opportunity to steer the conversation to spiritual things. This is where the spiritual convos comes in play. And you start talking about spiritual things, you share some resources with them, and then eventually you can sit down and open the Bible with them and let them ask you questions and answer them patiently, humbly, and you can give them a Bible study.
I remember one guy, he was saying that, he invited some people over to his place and he didn't eat pork and, meat and stuff like that. And people would ask him, like, why? He's like, no, it's all good. Like, you don't need to know. And he's like, they start demanding, why don't you know? You're like, when they get to the stage of demanding, that's when you know that you've got it, because then they're like, I am fed up with this. I want to know. I need to know.
They're ready for answers.
Yeah. And they're ready for whatever, And then he's like, oh, well, I'm a Christian, in, Moses's time and stuff, they were given commands not to eat meat. They were given special commands about the clean animals and stuff like that. Personally, I myself, I don't eat meat. If you look back in Eden, they were given fruits and vegetables, which is, science is now revealing is the best diet to have. And, then it's a wedge to get in, where it's just like, why? I demand an answer as to why you don't eat meat, and it's, that's one point, which is directly linked with, for us, it's directly linked to our faith is what we choose to eat, because my body isn't my own. Once again, mindset, my body isn't my own. It is God's. I go and give food to my body that will glorify God and put my body in the best state so I can work to my greatest ability, do what I need to do to my greatest ability, so that my mind is clear to have a spiritual conversation and to remember to carry the resources.
That's right. Yep.
And then I'm able to then, my mind's clear. I'm able to build rapport with them and hopefully get into their homes.
Yep.
And I've used my diet as an entering wedge.
Yep.
So that I've shared those 5 points.
Exactly. You did it. You summed it up perfectly.
Just through my diet. Okay. Absolutely. So like people think that diet's nothing, but it's so big.
It is. It's definitely. And what's important to remember is that that first thing was he invited them to his home. Now this is what you can do as well. You can invite people to your home and have a meal with them. And it opens up, people relax and they talk about things. And that never would have happened. That spiritual conversation never would have happened if they hadn't been eating together, because they wouldn't have known about the pork issue.
Yeah.
So for me, I had the opportunity. My boss actually started coming to church of his own free will, because he started having Bible studies with the pastor, and so we had the opportunity to invite him to our house, and then we had a Bible study at our house, because he was like, let's have a Bible study together. And so, yeah, and I've been sharing with him because, he drinks and everything, still a little bit of alcohol because he doesn't quite understand the whole concept that you just shared of glorifying God in your body. I was able to share with him the really nice sparkling grape juice, the non-alcoholic one for Christmas. And they were very, very grateful. So, there's just little by little along the way, you're able to share a better way of life with other people.
Yeah. And there was a story that I heard, which, covers a lot of these different points. And it was about a lady, and she was struggling, I believe it was with drugs. Anyway, and she'd been like kind of sneaking to one of the churches, then straight away leaving because she didn't want to talk to anyone. Anyway, and the pastor's like, I can't let her get away.
Oh, yes, I know this story.
Rachel knows it, and it's a great one. And he goes after her one day after she's tried to escape. Anyway, and he's like, oh, how you going? Stuff like that. And they get talking, and she's there, and they're explaining different things, and she's saying about how she wants to give up drugs, but she isn't being able to, and stuff like that. And he basically suggested that she needed to change her mindset. She needed to help others. He's like, you've been praying for yourself all this time, but you need to pray for others now, and you need to help others, because by helping others, we help ourselves. So, they had this big conversation, and she's like, fine, I'll go out and I'll go and give these people their DVD that they requested, the resources that, they've requested. I'll drop that off to them and I'll go, and we'll see if I give up drugs. Anyway, so she's given the DVD, and he said, I'm not going to eat as long as you're there and need to wait to give them this DVD. And for him, it's very hard for him not to eat, but he's like, I'm just going to pray for you all the while that you're there. And when she gets there, and she's like, this isn't working. They're not home. They're not allowing me in, because it was like an apartment. Anyway, and he's like, go back to your car and pray. I don't care if you're there for days. You stay there until they come out. Anyway, and she's like, fine. And she starts praying. Anyway, and she calls up like him back 2 minutes later. It's like, no, this prayer stuff doesn't work. They haven't come. He's like, how long have you prayed for? And she's like, 2 minutes. And he's like, that's poetry, not prayer. You go back there and you actually start praying. Anyway, and she said that afterwards, she started basically arguing with God. And she's like, why this? Why that? And he's like, that's when you actually started praying, all right? All before it was poetry, that when you started going and really getting into your prayer and asking God, he was like, that's when you started praying. And she said that, while she's there, she's wrestling with God in prayer, someone goes and like comes out of the apartments, and she races over to them with the DVD, and she's like, can I please come in? They're like, well, you're not really allowed to. She's like, I need to get in there and give them this DVD. Anyway, so she goes in there, and the person's not home. Anyway, and in a turn of events, someone else like asks her, what she was doing and stuff like that. She's like, I had this DVD that I was meant to give to this person. Anyway, and he's like this big tough guy, and he's like, get into my unit. And she's like, no, I've got to just like give it and run. Anyway, he's like, no, go in there. Anyway, and he just leaves her in this apartment, and he's gone somewhere else. And he comes back with like 11 other big tough guys. And she's like, what am I supposed to do? Anyway, and they're like, we're on drugs. We've requested this DVD. It hasn't been given to us, but we need to go and look at it. So they play it, and I think all the guys started crying. She's like, I'm a drug addict as well, guys, but I was told that I had to do this. And so by that, she changed her mindset and allowed God to use her. And, she was able to go and help so many people through that, 11 other people that probably wouldn't have been reached if it hadn't been for her witness that day. And, the resources that she was carrying, stuff like that. She went into the home, all sorts of things, that have been discussed. And, she was able to do it. And she was so happy afterward. She's like, I wasn't thinking about my problems when I was helping them. So as I said, helping others doesn't just help them, it helps ourselves. So I think that's something that's really important as well.
Absolutely. I love that story. I love it, love it, love it. And if I may share a quote really quickly.
Yeah, sure.
It says, a working church is a growing church. The members find a stimulus and a tonic in helping others. And it goes on to explain this story, very similar to that one, but just a little bit different, of a man who was freezing cold, and he was on this mountain alone. He'd gotten lost and he couldn't find his way back, and he was ready to die. He was ready to give up, right? He was almost frozen, right? And then stumbling around, he finds this other man who is lying there, like practically almost dead, frozen himself. And he's like, well, I've got to help this person. So he kneels down and he starts, the friction rubs to try and warm him up. And then, he's helping him and he's working. And as he's working to help someone else, he saves his life. And then he ends up saving both his life and the life of that man. So this getting active in ministry, as much as it is about, we want other people to be in heaven, we want them to have this saving relationship with Jesus, it is essential to the salvation of our own souls. I know that when I'm not having that mindset in the morning, praying for opportunities and looking for ways to be a blessing to others, I know that my spiritual walk is struggling because I begin to be despondent, to be very my focus is on self. And so just on a last thing, it's not really a last tip, but there's the last thing I want to say. It's once you've done all this, right, it's really important that you share what you've done, these experiences, with other people. And so I would highly recommend, if you can find a couple of other young people and challenge each other to follow these 5 steps, right? And then get together and share what you've done, even if it's just something little. Hey, today I had the opportunity to talk about my diet with someone else, and they were open to it, or they weren't really open. What do you guys think? And can you put them on your prayer list, and can you pray for them? And you need to find other like-minded people who can pray with you, who can share their stories of success, their stories to encourage you. Because sometimes it's very discouraging. Things seem like, well, I talked to them and they weren't really interested. Don't really want to try again. But if you have other young people that you can join up with, and that's why I'm so passionate about this, that's why I'm so passionate about other young people, because I want other young people to know that there is someone out there who is supporting them, who is behind them, who is encouraging them to reach other souls for Christ.
Definitely. And having that, I guess, community of, young people, older folk, whoever, as I said before, whoever you are, when you have those other people that you can go and talk to about different things and encourage each other in the work that you're doing, it's incredibly uplifting. At different camps, we've gone out as, larger groups, and at night, when we all come back together, we have a time of sharing, and we share what has happened. Sometimes it's not even us. Normally at the camps we were divided into 2 groups, with the ones that I've been to, where one's out on the doors going and selling books and canvassing, the other one's doing like backyard blitzes and stuff like that. And you get both sides where, someone's like, able to pray with the person that, we had the backyard blitz for. And then you've got the canvassers who are like, I got to pray with someone. I went, sold this many books, and, people gave donations, and, they were just so appreciative. I was able to pray with people. I was able to be a listening ear and an encouraging voice to them, and it's amazing, to be able to hear those testimonies. Some people are like, I don't do canvassing, but I do conversations. She's, I remember one girl, she's like, no way. I admire you guys for the work that you do with canvassing, but it's not me. But I'll have a conversation with someone in the airport. And it's like, good on you, because for me, as I said, like Rachel and I said, we don't I really like going and just striking up conversations with people. That's probably something that I find harder, and someone else finds easier. So we're not saying that one way is the way to go, like everyone should be canvassers or everyone should do backyard blisters and stuff like that. God has a very specific and purposeful role for you wherever. So I think that's also something that's very encouraging.
Exactly.
Awesome. So in wrapping up, we've looked at 5 awesome points. What are some tips? And well, we'll share the tips, but what's your final thoughts?
My final thoughts is that this can seem all very simple to say, I guess. Very easy for me to say on this side of all the training I've received and everything like that. But I totally understand that it's tough. It's scary. It's going to require a change. If you haven't had this mindset, right, that's the first thing to work on. It's going to require a shift in priorities, and maybe a big one. But I encourage you to take little steps, just really small steps. This is what I had to do at work, because as much as I'd been trained to do all this canvassing and preaching and all that sort of thing, I couldn't even talk to my boss. And so I had to take little baby steps, and God understood. And he's not stopped listening to me about spiritual things because I was unable to answer his questions. It just took me a lot longer. And now he wants to get baptized. He's going to get baptized. And praise God for that. And God is patient with us, but take little steps and then share with someone else this little step you took. And then they'll share with you what their little step was. And little by little, you can begin to just learn to live this whole different life, because it is a different lifestyle. So I encourage you, pray, look for opportunities, start a spiritual conversation, see where it goes, share a resource, pray for that person, keep them in your prayers, even if all you do after you share that resource is pray for them. That's my final words.
And prayer is so important. Like, when we go out, like when we're doing like the bigger evangelism things, like we're constantly praying, and I found that that's when I had the most success with getting books out and stuff, is when I'm praying all the time, whether they bought a book or not, pray, thank God for it, and you hear so many stories, like when you're out there, of people who, because of prayer, have, had crazy events happen, things that are like out of this world happening to them. And it was because of the power of prayer. So I would strongly recommend praying and just, slowly implementing these things into your life, even if it's just praying more and asking to be a blessing, is that person seeing Christ in me today by the way I acted? Am I the only Bible an unbeliever will ever read? And what message about God do they get out of me? So I think that is like one of the most important points. If an unbeliever was to see me and I was the only book, the only Bible that they were to ever read, what would they know about God? So I think that would be like my final thoughts. And, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on. You can find Rachel's ministry at www.undividedheart.online. And we'll have all the links in the description. You can also find them on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And this episode of Hopeless was brought to you by the Avon Valley SDA Church. And their website is avonvalley.adventist.org.au. And you can also find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And thank you so much for coming on again, Rachel. It's been amazing and refreshing having you on. And hopefully we can have you on again sometime.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blessing.
Praise God. And, thank you guys for joining on and listening to this episode. And, start sharing. And, I hope that this has been a tremendous blessing to you as it has been to us. So until next time, take care and God bless. Bye.